They thought they could erase me from my granddaughter's wedding, but this 62-year-old Marine granny held the $340,000 check that would make or break their perfect day. I'm Evelyn Anderson, and this is how I taught my granddaughter a lesson in loyalty after she called a stranger her grandma in front of 350 guests. If you love stories of justice and standing up for what's right, hit that subscribe button, give a like, and comment with the city you're watching from. Here's my story. I'm Evelyn Anderson, 62, a Marine veteran who built a plumbing business from nothing. My granddaughter Sarah told 350 guests at her wedding that I was dead, hugging a stranger she called Grandma. But I'd paid $500,000 for her big day. Every flower, every glass, every note of music. She didn't know I held the final $340,000 check to keep the reception going. After 24 years of raising her, 6 months of planning her dream wedding, and 1 moment of betrayal, I was ready to show her what happens when you forget family. It was June 15th, 2024, at the Willow Creek Estate in Greenwich, Connecticut. I pulled my 2019 Ford F-150 into the valet line, surrounded by Porsches and Teslas. The valet kid eyed my truck like it didn't belong, but he took my keys. My $89 rental dress felt out of place among gowns costing thousands. I'd built Anderson Plumbing for 30 years, learning the difference between quality and show. These people didn't know I was funding their champagne. Inside, $25,000 chandeliers lit up 350 of Greenwich's elite, families with names on libraries and hospitals. Sarah, in her $32,000 designer gown, floated through the crowd. Our eyes met. She looked away. A wedding planner with a headset checked her list. Table 18, Mrs. Anderson. Near the kitchen, where servers rushed and the speakers buzzed, the table for relatives you invite but don't want seen. Sarah sat at table 1, center stage, with her new in-laws, the Bradleys. Thomas Bradley Sr. owned half the county's real estate. Old money, older than my family's farm in Ohio. I watched Sarah point to a woman in her 60s, elegant in a custom dress. My grandma, Margaret Ellis, she said, smiling. I'd never met this woman. My table had distant cousins and plus ones. Nice folks, but not society page material. We talked about the weather. Nobody asked what I did. I'd raised Sarah for 24 years, bandaged her knees, read bedtime stories, paid for her private school, $14,000 yearly, her Yale degree, $68,000 yearly, her Manhattan apartment, $3,000 monthly. Now, I'd paid for this wedding, $180,000 venue, $85,000 catering, $28,000 flowers, $15,000 quartet, $12,000 photographer, $8,500 cake. Total, $500,000. Sarah forgot one thing in her rush to fit in. She didn't read the contracts. I signed everyone. Cocktail hour dragged on. Sarah posed with the Bradleys, acting like they'd rescued her from nothing. Every smile hurt. Staying quiet meant losing my self-respect. I'd started Anderson Plumbing in 1994 with a used van and toolbox, working 16-hour days, eating peanut butter sandwiches. I listened to clients, bought their buildings, fixed them, rented them. Now, I own 23 properties with $8.9 million in revenue last year, net worth the same. Sarah thought I was just a plumber with dirty hands, embarrassing at her Yale events. She didn't know I owned more than half this room. Staying silent meant letting her build a marriage on lies. Teaching her loyalty was optional if the social status was right. In my pocket were bank statements showing the $500,000 transfer, contracts with my signature, and emails with planner Lisa Wong. 23 messages over 4 months, all copied to Sarah. She knew who paid for this. A Greenwich Social Register reporter was here, ready to cover the wedding of the season. My attorney, Michael Carter, sat 3 tables away, briefcase ready. He'd flown from Florida thinking I was paranoid. "She's your granddaughter, Evelyn." It's just wedding stress, but he'd never sat at table 18 while a stranger was called Grandma. Venue manager Emily Hart kept glancing at me. She knew who signed the checks. Vendors called me, not the Bradleys. I was the client. The Bradleys thought their name made them untouchable. They didn't know earned power, built one customer at a time. Challenging Sarah meant forcing her to choose between her new family and me, between lies and truth, between status and values. Not challenging her meant teaching her love didn't need respect. My phone buzzed. Sarah texted, "Granny, please don't mention the plumbing business tonight." It's important. 30 years of sacrifice reduced to shame. I looked at the chandeliers, the orchids flown from Hawaii, the guests who'd never worried about payroll. I had to act. At 7:15, cocktail hour peaked. 3 guests approached my table, clients of Anderson Plumbing. Jane Miller, whose basement I fixed last winter, Dr. Robert Lee, whose office we renovated in 2019, Karen Wu, whose restaurant I saved on Christmas Eve 2022. "Evelyn, didn't expect you here," Jane said. "Grandmother of the bride," I replied. Her face shifted, confusion, then sympathy. "Sarah didn't mention," her voice carried. Whispers spread. "That's the plumber. Sarah's grandma? I thought she was dead." The story rippled through the crowd like spilled wine. Thomas Bradley Sr., 72, in a $4,000 suit, approached. "You must be Evelyn," he said, hand outstretched. "Thomas Bradley." Sarah's told us so much a lie. She told them nothing. "You look familiar." "I fixed your sink last March, Sunday emergency." His smile flickered. "You do fine work. Sarah's lucky to have a practical grandma." Practical like a tool. He patted my shoulder and left. The room now knew the bride's grandma was the help. Sarah's face paled across the room, whispering sharply to Thomas Jr. He glanced at me, assessing a threat. Emily Hart approached. "Mrs. Anderson, everything okay?" She knew the contracts. Perfect, Emily. Thomas Jr., 28, Harvard MBA, trust fund kid, shook my hand weakly. "Thanks for raising an incredible woman." "She is incredible," I said. Sarah mentioned challenges, like working was a flaw. We all have them. She'll never worry about money again. The Bradleys take care of our own, like Sarah was adopted from poverty. "Family is everything," he said, "blood or otherwise." The insult stung. Sarah caught my eye, fear in her gaze, sensing her world might crack. She'd built it on lies, trading family for status. But I held the real power, earned, not inherited. At 7:45, Emily texted, "Final payment confirmation needed by 9 p.m. The ceremony was 15 minutes away. Michael Carter nodded, briefcase ready with contracts, statements, emails, proof of my role. Emily approached with 2 assistants. "Mrs. Anderson, we need to talk privately. Catering needs the $340,000 balance confirmed." I checked my banking app. Anderson Plumbing's account showed the pending transfer, scheduled for 9:15, not yet sent. "No problem, Emily, as long as service meets standards." She nodded, sensing trouble. A reporter, David Lynn, called. "Mrs. Anderson, about the catering payment." Someone had tipped him off. "You'll see," I said, hanging up. The Bradleys assumed their name guaranteed everything. They were wrong. At 8:45, dinner began, the ceremony flawless. Sarah glowed. Thomas Jr. played his part. Thomas Sr. stood for his toast. "Friends, family," he began, voice rich with privilege, "we celebrate 2 families joining." Applause. "Sarah, your grace and character make us proud to call you our granddaughter." He raised his glass to Margaret Ellis, to Sarah's grandmother, who raised her with integrity. The room cheered, glasses raised to a woman who'd never held Sarah's hand or paid her tuition. Sarah mouthed, "I love you, Grandma," to Ellis. 24 years erased. Margaret Ellis smiled, accepting praise for my sacrifices. Jane Miller froze, glass halfway up. Dr. Lee looked confused. Karen Wu stared at me, outraged. They knew the truth. Emily Hart checked her phone, worried about the payment. The catering supervisor glanced at his watch. 9 o'clock deadline looming. Thomas Sr. finished. To Sarah and Thomas, may their marriage reflect the values that raised her. The crowd surged to Ellis, congratulating her. No one looked at me, invisible at table 18. I stood, walking to the stage. Sarah saw me, fear deepening. Thomas Sr. smiled, expecting thanks. I took the mic. I'm Evelyn Anderson, Sarah's grandmother. The room froze. Conversation stopped. You've celebrated the woman who raised Sarah. That woman, I pointed to Ellis, never met her before tonight. Gasps. I paid for this wedding. $500,000. Venue, catering, flowers, music, all signed by me. Michael handed me a folder, contracts, bank statements, emails. Anderson Plumbing, my company, paid every penny. 30 years, 23 properties, $8.9 million revenue. Not bad for a plumber. Sarah shouted, Granny, please. Please what? Don't tell the truth? Thomas Sr. stepped forward. You can't. I did. Every contract has my name. I showed the emails. Sarah copied on all 23. Emily approached. Mrs. Anderson, the final $340,000. Perfect timing. I held up the check. Emily, does this venue serve people who deny their family? She froze. I tore the check in half. No payment, no service. Sarah screamed, You can't ruin my wedding! You did that, I said. Chaos erupted. Servers cleared tables. The quartet stopped. Thomas Jr. grabbed my arm. You're crazy! It's consequences, I said, pulling free. Emily radioed, Suspend service. Thomas Sr. threatened lawsuits. Michael countered, My client paid $260,000 up front. The final payment was optional if service was unsatisfactory. Denying her role isn't satisfactory. Jane Miller apologized. Guests whispered, Despicable. How could she? David Lynn recorded everything, his photographer snapping away. Sarah collapsed in her gown, sobbing. You're throwing away 24 years. You threw it away when you said I was dead. The room emptied, guests fleeing the drama. Thomas Sr. offered money. This isn't about money, I said. It's respect. Sarah sat alone at table 1, the Bradleys arguing by the exit. Thomas Jr. snapped, You said you handled the finances. Margaret Ellis slipped out, avoiding the fallout. I approached Sarah. You ruined everything, she said. I stopped funding my humiliation. Thomas Jr. looked at her with disgust. This wasn't the perfect wife he'd married. Emily confirmed the venue was secured, praising my dignity. As I left, Sarah called, Will you forgive me? Forgiveness is earned daily through choices. Your move Sunday, the social register ran, Wedding ends in drama as grandmother cancels payment. It went viral. Sarah called, crying, Everyone's talking. The Bradleys aren't speaking to me. You built this on lies. By Monday, vendors sued the Bradleys for the $340,000. Tuesday, Thomas Sr. offered compensation. It's not about money, I said. Sarah needs to choose who she is. Their social standing crumbled. Disinvited from events, board positions lost. Thursday, clients like Jane rallied around me. Business offers poured in, partnerships, ventures. My stand boosted my reputation. Sarah and Thomas Jr. tried counseling, but he filed for annulment, citing her lies. She moved back to her apartment, which I'd funded. Friday, she called. The annulment's through. I have nothing. You have a choice. Be yourself. Can we rebuild? It's never too late while we're breathing. 6 weeks later, Sarah visited my office, wearing jeans, no pretense. I lost my job, my friends. Pretending was exhausting. She'd read about property management, wanting to learn my business. There's a $38,000 job in customer service. You'll start at the bottom. I'll be there, she said. At the door, she smiled. Her first real one since she was 14. Thanks for teaching me self-respect is earned. I felt pride again. Real class isn't wealth. It's honoring those who made you.